Welcome to another episode of the Growth Compass. Shout out to our sponsor, Senders. If you want to do cold email deliverability correctly, you hit that link in the description. But without them, I would not be able to interview awesome people like Dave Behar. What's going on?
Hey, let's send it.
Let's send it. Let's send it, and then make sure it gets sent with Senders. That's right. No,
There you
but there's
go.
a if anyone has been following the stuff that you have out on the world of the internet, there's some awesome energy, some awesome stuff, really interesting things that you've gotten into that I'm excited to cover that I think a lot of people can learn from. So
Cool.
we
Yeah,
could, if we could just start with a quick intro of
do
who
it.
you are and what you're building.
I'm Dave Behar, and I'm building massive muscles.
There you go.
Just continue to build brands. And Blake, it's all about building brands and great experiences.
Well, yeah. So I think that goes right into the first thing that I would love to get some more clarity about is that you seem to have a family of brands, a family of different entities, working together to push forward like some type of collective experience for people. So how is the best way to understand how all of them work together?
Well, everyone's a network these days, and of course, we're building the Ion Network. You say family, of course. Love Ion family. It's about family, but so is Ion Kids about kids and what they do and sports naturally. Shout out to Philly.
That's right.
So, well, I mean, we have a local network of thousands of local channels, and that's where a lot of the scale is in localization. Ion Philadelphia would be an example.
Awesome. Well, how did it get I guess easy question for you. This where you imagined this company going when you started?
Yeah, I mean, we're where we are. Always hope and not necessarily wish, but plan to be in more and more places that make sense as long as we're serving a purpose and providing great value to the local resident as well as the local business and doing some great things. As far as where we are today, um, listen, it's evolution. We're happy with where we are. We're happy with our growth. It's a million to a billion and beyond. I'm not so sure our sights are on a trillion,
That's right.
even though trillion's one of those great iron words, just like quadrillion is. But
Yeah, right.
we're having fun and we're enjoying what we're doing from a production value, distribution, and certainly just our scale. And as long as we're full of collaboration, we're good. And making it happen. So.
Have you always been in the space?
Well, we are on a mission to Mars. If you're talking about space, there's a lot of planets out there. So you're talking about the space of what media or sports? Because we, touch in a number of areas. I've been involved in sports, my entire life, and then career. There's always been sports involved, and as a media platform, whether you want to call it social media or as media, I mean, it's we've been involved in platformation to some extent the entire career, and some related to league platforms, meaning where sports is played, where competition exists, and it's a great time. As far as the product space, like consumer packaged goods or food and beverage, always utilizing some form of media, but definitely driving brands. So in our case, it's the network of champions now. That's where our primary focus is and enabling success. Yeah, so real familiar with the world of media and the different forms. Up to date, certainly where social media is, and also where artificial intelligence has played a role. Although AI has been, around us for a couple of decades for sure. But originally, I'm a product guy, and of course, a brand builder, brand developer. But in terms of mostly internal brands that have exited from as well, always including media of some sort, and certainly shows, video, some of the events we'd sponsor over the years. And be a brand partner with certain leagues and events, formulating the media strategy around it on behalf of the brand, but at the same time, building out the media company, in this case, Ion. We're just in it to win it. And while there is some merchandising, um, Studio Store and Ion Studio Store and the Mall of Champions, we are focused on growing the media space. So that includes certainly some level of production, which we have our own capabilities, but helping companies and brands distribute. And really because of our network capability, not because we're in the agency side. We love working with agencies and folks that represent brands, and we're their best friend. So
So
optimizing.
how does the journey start with starting a media company like this? Like how do the first clients happen? You know, how does the first traction occur?
Well, certainly companies not just learn about us, but experience us through events and leagues. So our business is in so many regards is that we are a purveyor of shows, we're a purveyor of events and again leagues and other forms of content. And as far as where we got our beginning, it was simply just that. We would consider that a client business, but definitely a brand business. So we have brand partnerships, and those are only scaling because we provide integrated marketing, mostly related to the distribution, and Ion is the network. So Ion, the network of champions, that's more or less in every town in North America and beyond, and certainly categorically. Um, that's where the entry points are is either events or leagues. Certainly, a professional or aspiring content creator who not only has great video but shows, and that also relates to influencers, not influencers, but influencers. So,
Well, nice. Have so was entrepreneurship that something that was a part of your life before this, or is this the first company that you founded?
well, no, I basically founded companies, especially out of college. And my first two startups out of college, primarily in the product space, the action sports space, apparel, which you sold in stores globally. So, all 50 states in the US and international distributors, both of those, exited from successfully and then went into far more of a comprehensive strategy versus, sport type of activity that is always involved media. So helping, again, companies grow, let alone our own internal. And from there, I mean, Ion was born as a result of kind of the collective aspects of not just my career, but those that we have, always served. And then became the development of the brand, again, as not just a local network serving, again, towns across America, but also Ion Sports. And again, our platform has evolved over the period of time from even the search business to a e-commerce business and definitely a production business that we at least support other content creators through our work. It's multi-pronged, multifaceted. I don't know how else to describe it. It's very comprehensive, and there's an aggregation approach besides collaboration approach, and just working with great people, great companies, and certainly event and league operators, and some of which we take a stake in because of the value that we provide. So
So,
yeah.
when you talk about doing transitioning from, like you just said, e-commerce to more of a production or media company, are you saying that as in you add to or evolve from a type of company that you have been and incorporate new services, or you strategically transition into something that is different?
Well, if you're talking about, let's say, the normal form of business, I mean, everyone has different needs and voids that need to be filled, et cetera. Again, we come at it from a platform standpoint. We do have production capabilities. So if a company needs our production and distribution services, the distribution is really across our network and certainly can extend into other networks by the nature of our capability. Remember here that When you're talking about a, well, production business certainly includes other producers and content creators. So one thing is that it's all born from a company needing to fill voids, and that's basically what we do. There is some flexibility in terms of how a conversation or even a, let's say, a consultation might go, because everyone needs answers, and solutions. But it doesn't mean that we create all those solutions and answers, because if anything, we want to help make those people and companies better at what they do. So if that makes sense, rather than compete with them, which we don't really do. We provide a platform and a distribution platform. As far as e-commerce goes, we do have a couple great e-commerce operations, and can indeed include product in those if that's where their void is. But really, we want to help convert those eyeballs and earballs for them in where they are either already or where they need to be. And if that helps, give them some inputs in terms of more distribution in terms of their product, let's call it, or for that matter, digital assets, we're there. We'll do whatever it takes for that company to be successful and help be at least, involved in their ecosystem
Yeah.
successfully.
Well, so being that you guys have been so successful at doing so many things, I think something that is really interesting to me is at your level of decision making, how to navigate a market and not just try to be everything to everybody. When it seems like you could be if there was like infinite resources and money and all those things.
Yeah.
How is it that you and your team look at a market or over time have made the decisions to grow in a direction that's more focused when there are so many things you could be doing?
Yeah. I think distribution would be a key word. With distribution, you also need conversion, which is where the auto. So this is about focus on distribution, no matter where that asset comes from, and then the distribution, which we then offer as a key part of our network, and we are able to hyper target, hyper localize that show or that content. When you're talking about these other things and what might be, just offering other services, those only would be there if there's a void. And certainly we like to send people to the experts and or help them be better at what they do or want to do. So our involvement is certainly more about distribution, making sure those eyeballs are there and there's a conversion path, because why else be in the the show business, if you will, if that company and that individual, that influencer, et cetera, that content creator is not making money,
Got it. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
help them sustain and grow their business. And it is about business growth. You know, you could talk about just being money, but at the same time, it is about growth. And I know you know a lot about that. So
Well, definitely going to know more after this conversation. So I'm curious because media is such a wild space, and it is so
definitely.
specifically wild. And I mean, you can tell me, from your perspective, just from mine, like in the last 5, 10 years, even I guess relative to other periods of time, things have changed so drastically, and people's relationship to media and content has changed so drastically. So, how has that within the conversation of what we've been talking about with your focus on distribution, with how you guys have navigated the market and things like that, what's been your perspective on how media's changed? From any perspective, from how people are receiving it, how it's being created, just from what you've seen.
Yeah, I think many people today, well, let's say in past years, it was about, let's call it TV being the holy grail, or
Okay.
the movie theater, meaning cinema, those that are wanting to produce something that appears on the movie screen or the TV screen. And that's more or less, I want to call it years past. There's still quite a bit of viewing. I mean, even our OTT platform is growing in terms of viewership, but that's more streaming. And so the acceptability of where people today are consuming their media, consuming their shows. I'm not a big supporter of binge watching, because that means that you may not be out being active, and that's coming from someone who's been involved in sports my entire life and trying to, be healthy, stay healthy. But you know, the distribution often starts with a little old place called YouTube or Instagram or Facebook being the meta properties, and then it goes from there, X, etc. But likewise, we're talking about where people basically load in as their first places of placing their content. Whether they are scaling from there and utilizing other platforms, another story. Ion will certainly be an increasing part of that ecosystem that we want to be a leader in or continue to lead. But the evolution, it's insane. It's fragmented. You've got to go where the people are. Where are your people? where's your where's your tribe?
Yeah, yeah.
Living and breathing. And it may not be on one social network. And so with social networks dominating, and smartly a few said, hey, TV or traditional media company, come on over and distribute your media, which is why you're seeing, you know, reels and all sorts of other things that help connect, and obviously in micro forms.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I
It's all
think
good.
yeah,
It
yeah.
all gives opportunity, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think the way that you have navigated that perspective, navigated the opportunity, like you're saying, has put you guys in the position that you are, which leads me to an adjacent area, which is the energy that you have. I think the content that you put out, the little like the ion, focusing on that in words, and then
Where you have your
yeah, exactly. So it's I think another fascinating thing that isn't immediately attributed to business growth is the idea of building a team, building a culture, and leadership. And I think that's something that, and also, you have a title that is other than founder and CEO, chief executive athlete, correct?
yeah. Yep.
So,
Well, there's a playbook. There's a playbook involved in every leader. Of course, whether you read one of the books I co-authored, which was a bestseller, but Amazon bestseller, but you're talking about being in a leadership mode, and differentiation is critical. I mean, if you're that content creator or that brand, more and more, there's so much competition more than ever, and you have to have that differentiation. So, and then we need to apply it to our business at all times, so we can be relied on, and be believable and acceptable, and be that first point, preferably, of who you want to do a partnership and distribution relationship with. And we'll do everything we can with Ion to support that. And so again, both brand, individual, company can better monetize themselves. So
but
let
what
alone
what
have reach more people.
Yeah, well, what are some of the things that you like if you were speaking like let's say you're speaking to me, like I am currently building a small team of people. I've led in sports teams and things like that as well. And in
Yeah,
clubs and like in whatever communities in my neighborhood and like friend groups, whatever community you want to focus on. But as far as like leading a group of people around an idea that you have, and growing a team in a business, I think is extremely unique and wonderful thing. So, like, what has the last 20 years or so of running Ion taught you about what makes a great leader, and how do you express that every day?
yeah. Well, it's simply about enabling success, and of course, I love that word succession. But
Of course you do.
and I mean, let's put it this way. I've only got probably 40, 50 years left in my life. So I'm grooming the next successor to not just myself, but the business. And I think about that in terms of everything that we do and touch, and letting others on the team succeed and support their success. And that also translates to anybody, what I want to call in the circle of influence, or I influence. And what's important is that you continue to think, you got to think and drink outside the box. But its scale is the formula and the methodology. And I love the idea of leading teams, but I also love the idea of helping leaders scale their teams and their successes, where everybody just wins, a win-win type of stuff, because it is about winning at whatever you're doing. What else is there really?
So for yourself personally, with your internal team, or I guess you could take an example of how you've supported.
Ion Internal team,
your eye on Turtle Team. But
which you're now part of.
well, look at that. And then that's why I was saying I need some merch, so I can rep it. There are aspects to growth and being successful and reaching the scale that you guys have that it takes being able to show up consistently for a group of people that all work together in a similar direction. So maybe you have a favorite maybe like example or story or something that demonstrates a learning moment of leadership for you, or someone else that you've helped scale as far as a content creator or someone that you've partnered with.
Yeah, there's some, recent stories, recent successes, but there's also those stories that relate to companies that have been involved in and helped scale and were exited, and then what occurred to them. Because some of those learning moments, you hear a lot about learning from failures, even learning from just past relationships, and what to either avoid so you don't have those hurdles the next time anyway. But I hearken back to even Hotmail. If you know the brand, or what used to be the brand, I mean, was really proud of that deal, and then went through an acquisition, and then the brand went away. Now that's happened a few times in my life, my career, where you know good brands, solid brand, great traction, revenue, and it just goes under an umbrella, and then finally it becomes a product, and maybe not even the continuation of the brand, even though you want people to fall in love with your brand, and you want to share that love with everyone, and also have it be reciprocal, right? That's how you grow a brand in a business. But there was some learning moments there of and I apply it in most that I do, like what's going to happen with this relationship, what's the outcome that we're after, and what can we do so it becomes real successful. And one thing, it's interesting, you went to Union College, right? Okay. So of course I love the term union. It's got a great three-letter word at the end, but it's also that, hey, but there is union, there, the idea of a union means that you are together and hopefully successfully together. Okay. And with that said, it's like you're hopefully, and I throw the word, like, also this word automation in. Now, you're talking about memorable moments, things like that, that may have been learned from. But we learn from our own mistakes and learn from our own successes, and certainly those around us. So, if anything, I could say, well, I guess I could have had a better circle of influence to help me or us along better, and surrounded ourselves with more and better people. And then who are those people? Because you might be working with somebody who is, let's just even say, the top of their field, but how does it apply to your business and your even personal life? So that becomes its own learning moment of, is there a good fit? And we're even talking about, the relationship, like personal relationships. But in this particular case, we're talking about that learning from those things that work for you and don't necessarily work for you is critical. I want to be even more specific about other brands and then relationships, but
Yeah.
there's those times. I mean, even jumping into deals with either investment capital, my own, and or simply being plugged in to help turn around a company, and successfully doing so. But at the same time, that also can be a distraction, and that's not one of my favorite ion words, because it could be a distraction to where you're headed. And everything is about where you're headed. And you don't have to have a master plan, but being able to head in the right direction is critical. And if you have some disruptions sitting there and distractions, it's better to know that they could be distractions or disruptions. Disruption could also be a great word, right? In the world of business, disrupting a market.
Right,
But
right.
at the same time, it's like, how does that play a role in where you're headed, in terms of that, market existing, or even for that matter, a relationship. Um, I think there's, you pick up your wins along the way, and keep notching those wins. And if you have the methodology, you keep playing taking that out of the playbook. And those times that you maybe struck out, well, guess what? Those you're not hitting, you're not going after those pitches anymore. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a
Well,
good
also,
analogy or not, but
no, no, I no, I think it tracks from the chief executive athlete. I think that's an analogy that makes sense. So in in my this has been that was awesome, by the way. I appreciate you sharing that perspective. This definitely learned a lot from this conversation. I think before I get off, there are two questions I'm excited for you to answer, and it's in line with what you're discussing about the challenges and notching winning wins and things like this. At the moment, is there what's the biggest challenge or one of the biggest challenge that you are navigating at the moment with Ion, and how can it be framed as an opportunity?
yeah, well, I mean, going back to that word automation is one thing they say, oh, well, everything's automated, everything's login, social networks, things like that. So it's not necessarily battling what is human behaviors with AI, AI big opportunity or the other way around. So one of our, you can call it, it's not a hurdle, it's an opportunity. We've created a kind of a scope of eye intelligence and how we're treating what is necessary human behaviors, meaning we can't forget that we are human beings. You can have AI and other automation tactics run things, but are we happy? Because you got to have fun, got to be happy. And we, our challenge then is always wanting to be happy, positive, those things that make life great. One thing is making money, but it's also what's gratifying. Where's your gratification right, coming from, and all that. So, and being real and being authentic. So, in our case of those then challenges and whatever you might want to call them, is continuing to be that and not the sake of. It's not a matter of selling out and bringing things to become more AI driven or that next AI solution. If anything, it's to, how do I say it? It's to work through those things that everything else is AI, and then you want to call it artificial. And how do we remain without not scaling, I guess, or without losing scale of doing things in a human like, matter. So it's, we're just in that mode, and it's the human mode, human powered mode, besides utilizing automation the best we can to deliver that.
Yeah,
And
well,
so
yeah. I mean,
I don't know if that makes sense.
no, no. I think there's a lot of focus with automation with AI to automate as much as you can. I mean, you see it with places like Substack, places like LinkedIn, content heavy places. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess potentially not yet Instagram or TikTok or wherever, because that's a really like image heavy. But these places that are really text heavy, there's a lot of AI stuff just being dumped. Like quantity over quality. So I appreciate that you being in the position that you are as far as media distribution and things, having a human focus and being more intentional with that. I think that's really so. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Well, you've used some great iron words, appreciation and intention. In
Hey,
our
look at
case, it's
that.
ion,
It's ion
ion,
tension.
ion tension, of course.
Oh, of course. Good. Well, related to I'm gonna start picking these out everywhere. I can't I can't unsee them now.
You're gonna wake up in the middle of the night and go, what the hell?
Hey, appreciation.
Yeah. Well, you've got to have appreciation. I mean, it's a big world, and we should all be getting along and all be working to win and succeed. And for that matter, those that need help getting there, then that's what kind of role you play.
Well, I have a way to phrase this last question that's different than I usually do, but I think you'll
Cool.
appreciate it. So my last question that I'm again excited for you to answer is where do you find your inspiration?
Oh boy. Yeah. You mean eye inspiration or just
I
inspiration?
inspiration, yes, that's what I meant to say.
So I'm not going to ask you to reframe the question
Okay.
though. I get it from I could say parents, but really it's about the evolving, world we live in and the places that have the opportunity to travel to and the people in those places. It's interesting, the inspiration, the eye inspiration, it comes from so many sources. I couldn't say, hey, just one. It's many. And part of that is what probably makes me kind of ion sane. It's many things, and try to deliver that in what I do and what our company does. And this is part of the DNA. So that's where, the inspiration is drawn from, is those special things, those special places, and those special people. And not just one, it's many. I can say millions, but I don't have a million friends at this point. There's locations, and specifically, that draw more inspiration than others, whether it be exotic or various cities, and some of the people and organizations I'm involved with, of course. But that's what I would urge the viewers and listeners. It's like, you want to know who those folks are and draw that positive energy from it, for sure.
Well, thank you.
So
Well,
I
I've
have a
definitely
lot
got
of
a lot of positive energy from this conversation. That's for sure.
thank you. It's good, likewise, for sure.
Well, awesome. Well, Dave, this has been so fun. This has been so cool. Thank you for bringing your perspective, and dropping some really cool pieces of ion formation. If people are
There you go.
they that's right. If people are
You said it, I didn't.
that's right. People are inspired to keep in touch, or follow your journey. What's the best way to do that?
I mean, you can find me in some social platform, including Ions, but just send me an email, dave@ions.com, 2 4-letter words. Just drop me a line, and I'll answer. I'll say what's up, and that's about it. I'm happy to respond, and create conversation.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, I'm looking forward to the next time we connect and get some of those updates.
Yeah,
And you better bring some more ion words.
yeah.
Oh yeah. All right, Dave.
All
Thanks
right,
so
Blake.
much.
Been fun.